Gobble, gobble. Happy Thanksgiving from Anthony Schlegel and Austin Ward. Yeah, it's the podcast daily for Thursday of the game week. Best part, Schlegs, of Thanksgiving, you got family, you got
Yep.
food, you got football,
Yep.
and you're 2 days away from the game.
Yep. Yeah, it's amazing. Just up here in Ohio enjoying it, and we have a lot to be thankful for. And something that we can't ever forget about it. And thank you for this rivalry and the game and whatever, all the other things that are going on. So everybody out there, when you're celebrating with your family, remember, enjoy the experiences. Those are the things that last and that you will remember. But Austin, I'm super juiced about this game, man. Super juiced.
All right, well, before we can get to it, what goes on Anthony Schlegel's Thanksgiving plate?
That's a great question. So we'll have turkey, ham. I think my favorite, again, I'm a connoisseur of all foods, and I always try something for the first time. I ain't scared.
Yeah.
But, like a little green bean casserole with the stuff that's on top, that's a solid. Turkey, ham. Now some people eat their ham cold. I don't like that. I like the meat hot.
Yeah.
Just something with me. I love mashed potatoes and gravy. Now, white or brown gravy, it's kind of weird, man. Like I grew up in the South and they had white gravy, but coming from the North, like we had brown gravy. I like brown gravy.
Yeah.
So mashed potatoes, some brown gravy, drizzled all over my turkey. Now, I will say this as well. Mashed potatoes. I will also get the sweet potatoes that have like the cinnamon and the marshmallow on top. I dig that. So yeah, I don't know if we really even have salad. Why would you want to fill up gut space with some foliage on a day like this where it's supposed to just put you into a comatose for the later games? And again, we go out, we're going to have a bunch of people at the farm and like just hanging out and watching ball and playing football in the front yard. And so my nephew's coming to town. He plays soccer at Robert Morris. He's bringing some of his, buddies that are from overseas over. It's going to be great. I'm like, hey, let's blow some stuff up. All right. Let's indoctrinate them really fast. And they're like, I don't think so. I'm like, okay, I'll keep those in the gun safe. So
sure.
But it's going to be a great time, man. It's going to be a great time.
Well, you've got me starving, Schlegs, and it'll be an interesting one for me because I can't eat all that stuff on Awaken 180 this time.
You know what? And I'm really proud of you. I'm really proud of you and Chops doing that. And again, you can do stuff just in moderation and what's on the plan. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yep.
Like, I think sometimes people, they look at like what I do. And I tweeted this out. I was like, everybody in the state of Ohio, man, you got to play your part in some capacity to get ready for this game. Now, me, I like to eat heavy iron, so I'll do some 700-pound plus Hatfield squats. And I'm going to go deadlift over 700 pounds for some reps because I enjoy that. You never know, man. It might be a Friday or a Saturday morning, like before it, and they might have to tap me in, and I got to drive up there and bring the juice for some capacity. I don't know what the case may be, but you always got to be ready to respond when called upon. So we all have that. Some people, it might be, hey, double fisted some garage beers. You know what? You're doing your part. Everybody has to do their part. And Austin, I completely digressed with that, but I think that you're doing your part as well, because that's your goal, man. That's your goal. Like you're doing that. You're sacrificing some things.
Well, my part is that I can't fully sacrifice beers, and I won't. So
that's a great concession.
Friday night preparation will still be full steam ahead. Zach Bourne going to be staying up there near us in the same spot. So Bill and I, Berm, Zach, we'll all be getting ready. My preferred way. I will gladly sacrifice some food because my weakness or vice or favorite thing in the world is drinking beer. So anyway, that's what I will do.
You love the taste of beer. There's nothing wrong with that, man.
I gotta have it, man. So everyone has their limits, but the game. One thing I heard that's interesting, Schlegs, you've been in the big house. You've been in that tunnel. One of the most dangerous that I can remember seeing in college football. I don't know why it's still the way that they decide to have both teams come down to enter the field after what happened with Michigan and Michigan State a year ago. I understand that Ohio State is bringing more security, 6 officers to help get into the stadium on Saturday. When you walk in, when you handle everything pregame, I imagine you liked it. But But what is it like to walk into that sort of, gladiator pit there?
I mean, really, when you pull up in the bus and you're driving through the tailgates and everybody's flipping you off, like you relish that. Guess what? I mean, the only time you get to experience it now is road rage. So, in there, you're going in there and you're putting pads on, and you're playing in front of 110,000 people. You absolutely love it. All right. It's you again, it's Ohio against the world. It's you versus everybody that's there that's supporting, Michigan. So you embrace that. But I mean, again, like when you're on the bus, like you got your headphones on, you got your routine. Like that's the thing as you grow, especially like in high school. In high school, it was, I think there was probably, I'm trying to think. I think even in high school, man, it was Braveheart and Last Mohegans. I mean, I think I had the exact same thing until I got done playing in 2010. So, I mean, that lasted a long time. Now the music that got me juiced right before it kind of changed. It was Offspring and some stuff, and then it moved over to some rock and Sound of Madness and things of that nature. But it's the routine is the same, and you're just in your zone and you're just watching. Like it's like people watching. It's like going to Walmart and just watching people. As you're driving on the bus, and then you get out and you're like, boom, you go in and you go to your locker and you find your little niche, right? And that locker room is tiny. Everybody's going to have some space. You're like, okay, where am I going to do my routine? Well, my routine was I would go there. I'd look over my tip sheet. I literally would take my stuff, my clothes off. I'd hang them up. And then I literally would just take a nap. And then I would get up and I'd go get in the hot tub, just get a little bit hot, right? Get it, maybe a heat pack. And then I would start looking over my tips simultaneously. Braveheart's just playing in the background. It's kind of the calm before the storm, just the soundtrack, instrumental music. And then you warm up, you come back in, you put your pads on, same music, I mean, the soundtrack was 18 tracks, so it lasted a long time, and then you went out and you did warm-ups. And you came back in, and there was like a certain amount of time. I had it timed up, and I would play a specific song that I wanted to at that time. And then the coaches called you up for your meetings, boom, and then you went out and you played. But to me, it was always about like, I'm there to go accomplish the mission. I got to be at my best for my teammates. And everybody, and that's the thing, like some guys like the locker room loud. I remember in 2014, I was like the DJ, man. I had, the Oreo mix and boom, you're playing it and I'm skipping songs, but we always like I think it was like when 2:30 was left before Urban spoke, I would play Dreams and Nightmares because the lead up and build up of the beginning of Dreams and Nightmares, I believe was 1:30, and then it would just drop and the entire team would scream the rest of the lyrics. And then Urban would bring them up and, Mickey would say, it is time and do his thing. And then Urban would talk and then boom, you went out. So, but that's what it feels like, man. It's the same thing when you go to Penn State and they're like shaking the fences. You love it. You embrace it. And you have to just cherish the experience because you're never getting that feeling again, but it resonates even when you're in business and you're giving pitches to people and you're trying to make sales in front of big presentations or whatever. It's the same thing, right? But it's just different because you're doing it in front of 110,000 people and millions of people watching all over the world. So, but it's super fun, man. I mean, you love it. That's why you work. I mean, think about it, man, 365 for 12 Saturdays. And one of them is just epic.
Yeah. So let's get into the actual matchup. So they're out of the tunnel. We get to noon.
Well, I think, you know what though? I think you brought up a great point. I said on the Bobby Carpenter show, the tunnel, all the distractions off the field. And Ryan, I think, did a really nice job with senior day and the stuff and the game previous, right? About the guys being locked on the mission and focused. And in this game, Truss was phenomenal because Truss was always Truss. Like that's why you love the vest. He was just even keel the entire time. In a game like this, having lost the last two and the anxiety and the animosity and all of these things, the one thing we have to control is we have to control ourselves. We saw that last year. And there was a personal foul penalty. We were actually moving, moving the ball. That was critical because then we got behind the chains. I think we were in the plus territory.
Yes.
We got a personal foul and like completely halted the game, and I was there with when Marcus Hall, got ejected for that stuff. Like, you got to have your dudes there. They want you to do that. Right. So we just have to always constantly be focused on us and controlling ourselves and our emotion throughout the game, because you can never be too high and you never be too low. It's the next play is the most important play. I just think it's something that's very, very important for our guys. And there's no doubt that Coach Day and the staff are talking about it.
Yeah. And you can tell that the Buckeyes are listening to it, Schlegs, because, you know, a handful of those guys, five of the veteran Buckeyes talked on Tuesday in the Woody, and like they were all, you know, parroting the same thing. Play with emotion. Don't let emotion play with you. So, you know, they're certainly hearing that. Now, you can spend all week talking about it, and it's still a different thing to get into Saturday and like actually be in that environment, and that's hard. But I do think that there's a little bit of maybe a difference, and I don't know if you agree with it or not. Like, because there are so many veterans on this team, you just look at the last couple of years. They were younger. I mean, they hadn't. Even they hadn't played it in 2020. They didn't play in the rivalry at all in that year. A lot of guys who basically this entire roster now has not won it, but they've at least now been through the last 2 years. They've gone up there and they've played here. They've lost both. So set aside the motivational part, just understanding what getting into Saturday is like, because it's different. Denzel Burke talked about that on Saturday. He's like, came up here from Arizona, had no real idea what it was going to be like. A lot of these guys hadn't even like been to games in the Horseshoe during their recruitment. And now it's like, oh, okay, now I see what you're talking about. So that may help, because they did not control themselves the last 2 years the way that they probably needed to.
Yeah, it's you know, having, you know, coming from Texas, transferring in, I was indoctrinated very, very quickly because it resonated with me. You know, Texans we're unique, we're freaks, we love our home state, and then when you come and you live in the great state of Ohio and you meet all the people and the fans and then being on the Buckeye Cruise and the hearts that are of the people of the great state of Ohio, like, you're in, man. You're a Buckeye for life, man. You're an Ohioan for life. And, you know, I think, you know, it takes a little bit of that time. We were also, and I don't want this to be left out, but we were winning games very differently than we're winning games now. And in the game like this, the defense has to show up. And in those two games, the previous years, it was always our offense had to be the catalyst that moved the needle, and our defense kind of had to hang on and do enough, right? And that's now no longer the case, which is where the balance has been. It's why you also brought in Jim Knowles. And again, Jim's going to be, you know, this is his body of work. Like, yeah, you have 11 games and you're a top 5 defense in the country, which is what your goal was. You're giving up less than 10 points of a game, which is absolutely amazing in today's college football. You've only allowed 3 touchdowns in the red zone. You've given up 7 field goals, which is a complete flip of the script from where it has been, because red zone defense has not been significantly good for us over the past years. Our guys are playing very, very fast, and they're playing every single play. Like, you have to earn it on this defense. And that also comes with the veteran leadership, but it also comes on the fact, like, you know, that you got to do your part. And when the offense is just so good all the time, it's like, you know, we can get away with that. It's okay. Well, it's not okay. The only standard is the standard is the standard. It has to be a top 10, top 5 defense in the country at Ohio State. You're the Silver Bullets. And I think that, accompanied with the leadership that you have, and again, leadership has no age. And I don't want to digress off this topic, but you mentioned the veterans on the team, but Denzel's not a captain, but he's a leader. Marvin's not a captain, but he's a leader. Mecca's not a captain, but he's a leader. You know, you have Cade and Tommy and, you know, Johnson, like, those are dogs. They've been there for a long time. This means something to them. They're from Ohio. Is Xavier from Ohio?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, it just means something, but like the way our guys, I just watch how they work, you know, in the weight room and in preparation, the extra reps that they get. You have a bunch of guys, though they may even be younger, that are leaders. And again, when we won the national championship, Urban always talked about the 10-80-10. And it's not about the top 10. He'd always say, you know, my daughter could go train the top 10. We bring you in here to make the top 80 into the top 10, the bottom 80 into the top 80, and then those bottom 10 into the middle 80. That's what you do. And we won that national championship. We had probably 32 guys that were in that top 10 gold area. That's how you win. That's how you stay consistent. That's how you stay level-headed in this, because it's not a coach to go do it. It's dude on dude, teammate on teammate accountability. And I think that's something that is very special, and it's evident in the way that they play.
Yeah. Xavier is from Cincinnati. I knew it was somewhere down in the southern part of the state. So got
Grinder,
that.
man.
That's
Great
right. And the Block O. So when you talk about Jim Knowles and that body of work and trying to get it done on Saturday, Schlegs, one thing that has come up, Berm has talked about it throughout the week. We get questions about it. It's like, we know how important it is to stop the run. You've seen what's happened in the game in the last 2 years. If there has been something, and it's really nitpicking, like it sometimes feels like Ohio State's given up 5-6 yards on first down, or there were drives early in the year. Notre Dame comes to mind, where like they could be had occasionally on the ground, not throughout the entire game, but there were periods where some drives could string along. If you're trying to stop this Michigan rushing attack with Corum and Edwards, what's going to be the key there for these, especially at linebacker, getting Tommy back, and then Cody and Steele? What's the key to doing it?
Well, the key is this. You got to remember, Knowles wasn't there 2 years ago. It was just last year. But let's look at last year. It was the explosive plays. I think Edwards had 2 runs over 75 yards. He had 220, I think, for the game, something to that effect. And it was really on 2 carries. And in that game, people forget, we were up 2017 at halftime. And honestly, I thought physically we won the battle in the first half. So what transpired, what happened afterward, it's when guys try to do too much as opposed to just doing their job and making the plays that they're called to make, is when those big plays happen. You haven't seen it. The only play that they've given up all year was on the fumble Ruski. That was 45 yards. I think somebody said they never give up a play over 45, over 40. They gave up one.
Yep.
And that was that one. Right? So tip of the cap. But the one thing I think that they have done better this year is the fits, and they're better, and they're really good tacklers, especially in space. And so in this game, right, to be able to stop the run. Now, again, Michigan's coming in. You got some question marks on their offensive line right now. The interior part of the line has to do their job, which means this: you can't guess, because when you guess and you freelance a little bit, that makes the linebackers a little hesitant on their fits. And when they're a little hesitant on their fits, then that means the safety's a little hesitant on their fit. And so you just have to be very decisive as to what you're doing on every single play. And yeah, you might not get the sack, but again, we haven't got a ton of sacks. It's been more from the perimeter side, the edge of the pressure, but inside, especially with JJ being able to run, we saw that in the Penn State game. Aller took off on a 25-yard run. We changed that at halftime. Guys stopped getting out of their lanes. We stopped running a lot of like the twisting stunts on that to be able to have people in the middle, because we knew if he had to bounce or he had to hesitate, guys could rally to the football. It's a lot easier when it's just a void and he just sprints straight ahead. That's a harder tackle to do. So to stop the run, though, you just have to be very decisive as to what is your gap and what is your responsibility. That's it. And I mean, and the safeties, and we've seen it, Proctor, Styles, and again, having Latham out, yes, it does hurt, but I think Sonny has done a great job of stepping in. He's a huge body. He is a physical player for being so young. I love it. Proctor's a physical player. They're going to have to help in the run game in this one. And here's the beauty of that. I completely trust Igmanusum and Burke to do their job. I mean, they're also going to be without potentially their number 1 wide receiver, JJ McCarthy. He had 141 last week. He had 60 yards versus Penn State. He was 7 for 8, but the last game he was just a little bit over 50%. Like, make that guy beat you. Now, last year's game, did he? Yeah, there were some deep shots that he took. Whether or not they knew that we were all out blitzing, and they still made the play. And I don't want to get into that right now. But if you're going to do something, make that dude beat you. But based on the body of work that we've seen for 11 weeks, I don't see the enormous plays happening. And it's also different. We've shifted more from just straight up man all the time to a lot of zone with man principles. Guys are able to, like, I'm man within a zone, but when I see that void, I know who he has. That was Hancock's pick. He was a curl flat player. He saw the guy. Burke was on top of him. Boom. He stepped in front and made the play. That's how you know guys are playing really fast. And we've been by being able to do that, we've kept everything in front. And that's those are all the keys to it, because now you make them one-dimensional and you get them behind the chains. And in that last game versus Maryland, Michigan predominantly all year has been really good on third down. I believe they were like 30% or so. I think it was like 4 or 13. Yep. That's going to be a deciding factor in this game. Besides the rushing battle and the turnover battle, it's that, right? Getting off the field, giving your offense an opportunity for another possession. I want to say one more thing about that. In that game, we had it in our game for the positive. Michigan had it last week for a positive. They had a strip sack, fumble, touchdown. Then they had a block punt for a safety. Like, those things will get you beat. So that's turnover battle and that's special teams. So we can't negate those things, right? In a game like this with emotions, because then you become more risky when you really shouldn't have to be.
Schlegel, I realize what I'm about to say is probably crazy. Like, Tommy Eichenberg's value is undeniable. He's played a ton of football, but I'm just wondering, from a linebacker's perspective, if there's any. It's only 2 weeks. Maybe that's not a ton of time, but you're working through an injury. You haven't been in the flow of the game. Is there any part of from a former linebacker that's like, ooh, is it going to take time to settle back in for Tommy? Is there a concern about coming back? Like, what would be the thought process for you in a similar situation? Or is there any concern on your part, knowing what Tommy's probably been going through to get back in time for Saturday?
I mean, he's had a lot of stuff this year, and it's just the physicality of the games that we played. We played 3 games back to back to back with Penn State, Wisconsin, Rutgers, that all ran the football, all very physical games. Here's the thing it's going to be like, how does this feel versus live contact for a long duration? Mm-hmm. That's the thing, because you can't replicate that in practice because you're trying to get healthy.
Yeah.
So when it comes to delivering a blow and shocking and shedding, how is that going to feel for 60 minutes? Now, obviously you play 30 minutes, right? If the time of possession's equal, but how is that going to feel for 60 to 70 plays and the physicality that's required? That's the only flow. Like, he's played so much ball, and Michigan has put on tape so many things, right? Like, them. Like, I still remember all the stuff that they did when we played them. And that was almost 20 years ago, right? So because we watched so much, like, again, everybody out there, Ryan had a great quote about the respect of the rivalry. And I think somebody was trying to bait him into something to deal with Harbaugh. And he just said, hey, man, the one way to respect the rivalry is to work the game every day. Mm-hmm. And when you're at Ohio State in spring football, matter of fact, even before you get to spring football, in mat drills, there's team up north periods. There's a fourth quarter team up north theme vibe to it, right? And it's competitive excellence at that point. Then you're in spring football. We watched a quarter of it every Saturday before we practice. It meant something. We had drills. We had periods where it was, beat that team up north period, right?
Yep.
So on, and all summer, right? There was something always about that game. That way it was always on top of mind. What are you doing to beat Michigan, right? And so with Tommy, he knows them. He's played a lot of ball. He's a very, very good linebacker, one of the best in the country. And it's just going to be, how does it feel play in and play out, delivering a blow? That and just the open field tackles as well, because you got to come to balance, play in space, and what shoulder is it? How am I going to take this on? And then eventually it's going to be bump it. You'll probably use another word there, and he's just going to be like, I'm going, right? And let the chips fall where they may. But that's all. That's all. I will say this too, man. Cody Simon, Steele have done a nice job. And you have CJ in there. He's not really going to be in the mix a ton in this one because he's still learning. But Cody, I thought, has done a really nice job. He's a physical linebacker. So if that's the case, I think you're going to see Tommy and Cody, and then you'll see Tommy and Steele, and then you'll see potentially Cody and Steele. Like, it's all, they're going to probably rotate a little bit, and it all is predicated upon how does Tommy feel.
All right, Schlegel, hit me with some difference makers for the game. We've been waiting all year for it.
Man, there's so many things about this one, and I'm just kind of going through my notes of what I actually think this is. But in a game like this, difference makers it's going to be the players being able to communicate on the field, especially offense. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to speak from a defensive perspective, guys. The communication and the fundamentals, when talent is equated, fundamentals win the game. And that's blocking and that's tackling. That's ball security. That's a difference maker right there. When talent is equated, fundamentals win. And when you're really good fundamentally, you allow yourself to play with great emotion. And like you said, the emotion play you. And with that comes great communication, because they're going to do some things in this game that we have not seen, just like we're going to do a lot of things in this game that they have not seen. And I think another difference maker is going to be Ryan Day. And I say that in this regard. Ryan has done some phenomenal formations out of certain personnel packages that you can get a variety and keep people on the field that is a mismatch for their personnel, because they can still run the ball. I mean, we saw the 75, whatever yard touchdown run by Trevion. That was out of 11 personnel with Cade and Emeka as a wing, and they pulled Emeka, right? And now to think that there's not a pass off that, to think that there's not more runs off of that, you're absolutely out of your mind. There was the other ones where you got bunch and same personnel, like we get them napping, or even in 12 personnel with 2 tight ends and Gee Scott's in there. There's runs out of it, yes, but there's also some really good passes out of it. Like he's put so many personnels and packages on tape and only ran 1 or 2 plays out of them. I guarantee you there's probably 10 plays off of each package that they know. They've whittled it down to this game plan. And him being in the flow of the game and knowing when he wants to go with tempo, when he doesn't want to go with tempo, and being aggressive to win it, I think is going to be a significant difference maker for the game. Then I'm just going to say this, like, defensively, I mean, I'm going to go back. I mean, there's so many in this game, guys. So I'll stay with the offense. Trevion's huge in this game because he sets up, and it's amazing how we've morphed into this, which I love, right? You saw the progression where the running back was the same depth as the quarterback. Trevion is a vision guy, man. He is a pro running back. Running from depth gives him vision and allows him to make the cut and accelerate. On that run, he got up to 21.6 miles an hour. Funny, Marvin was just running right there with him, like at like a 80% jog, it seemed, right? And there was another gear these guys had.
Right.
That's something that Michigan has not seen this year. But I say this in this. Our offensive line versus their defensive line, which is healthy, we're healthy. The running game is important because it sets up Kyle for success, because it keeps the linebackers honest. And if we can keep Kyle upright in the pocket, he performs significantly higher than when under duress. And those longer over routes that we've seen come open, whether it's Cade, Marvin, Emeka, that requires time, but it's also set up on the running game because you can run those plays predicated upon down and distance, right? So you're not just showing your hand like we're going to run this tee off. You know, you're doing it because there's also the threat of the run, predominantly on second down or potentially even third and short. So that's a huge one. And then I'm going to say defensively is this. We already talked about stopping the run and the physicality that is required. And I would say more than physicality, because our guys are plenty physical. They're plenty tough. It's just doing your job technically of being gap sound, negates all of those runs. Last year, there was 2 of the big runs. We had a linebacker and a safety in the same hole. Can't do that, right? So I think that has been cleared up. So then I'm going to go on what's the next thing, and that is J.J. McCarthy. I think if you rattle this kid, if you hit this kid, if you force it to be the game is on him, I take our chances. I like that. So, but in order for that to occur, what has to happen? Offensively, you got to be secure with the football and you got to score in the red zone. And that's why I got the game 24-20. You know, it could be even lower than that, but I just kind of think 24-20 kind of, you know, they get 2 field goals. We get a field goal. We get a touchdown. But that's just kind of how I feel it's going to go. I mean, our game, I think, was 25-21. And you guys got to remember, too, even in the game in 2005, like, I mean, our 2 years of playing Michigan, they had 79 yards of total rushing, but we were still down in that game. Henny made some plays, you know. So it's like, it's one of those deals where, you stop the run, but you're still going to have to make the plays to win the game. And I could see Emeka having a huge game in this one, because they're going to, at some point, they're going to be like, Marvin's going to get him. He just is, man. And they're going to be like, we can't allow this guy to get us anymore. And that's where you got a healthy Emeka Egbuka coming in. And you got a Cade Stover. Like, those two guys are kind of the unsung heroes of the offense. Cade, especially because so much goes through him to move the chains, but having a healthy Emeka back along with Marvin, along with Fleming, along with, X, like, it's going to be fantastic, man. I can't wait to watch. Can't wait to watch it, man. Can't wait to watch it.
We're almost there.
I gave you a lot of difference makers, but who do you think?
It's
man?
the game. You can have as many as you want in the game. I was going to say, I think this is a prime opportunity for Emeka being healthy. He looked the best he's looked since Notre Dame last week in the win over Minnesota. But I think Cade, if Michigan is trying to decide that they have to take away both of these guys and like not get beat through the air, that's where Cade over the middle becomes really key. Yep. I think there've been other games in the past where Ryan Day, I think about, like the Clemson Sugar Bowl. Ohio State put in a lot of stuff to go tempo and did some different things in huddle to try and guard against, different execution of signs, let's say. And that game plan involved, well, here's something new for you. How about two tight ends to the same side of the formation? Like, what are you going to do with these guys? I think Cade and G. Scott are capable of doing that in this game the same way that Jeremy Ruckert and Luke Farrell were. So I kind of think the tight ends are going to play a bigger role in this. They have to block anyway. They're part of the rushing attack. But I kind of think if all this attention goes to, Marvin's good, and then we're worried about Emeka too, well, then what? Because Ohio State, as you mentioned, Schlegs, has more weapons beyond that. That opens up opportunity for tight ends and Travion potentially. So,
huge, man, huge. That's where I love that take. I completely see it. Ryan has, again, I think sometimes, and it is because of the game, and it is because of the rivalry. He's 1-2, should have easily be 2-2. And I'm taking everything out of it, right? Let's just talk. COVID, we didn't play. They would absolutely beat him down, right? One in 19, right? And so 2-2, but like there's only 2 games that he's really lost, and then the one to Georgia. His record is staggering. What he's done here at Ohio State and also being able to recruit at an elite level. But I just feel as he goes, right, the team goes, and we saw that with Tress and why he was so even keel. The guys, like, they love him. And the stuff that he's going to do in this game, I think it's going to be one of his best coaching performances. And again, let's not forget, Harbaugh's not there. Harbaugh doesn't call crap, guys. He's more of a CEO type game manager than he is a play guy. He ain't calling plays, man, at all.
Right. Yeah.
So him not being there is not really that big of a deal. But I think Ryan's going to have himself a day. I think that the guys are going to, he's going to do some things, and the guys are going to step up and execute. But I want to mention one more difference maker. Tyleik Williams is going to have a day, man. And here's how he's going to have a day. He's not necessarily going to get sacks. He's going to get a couple plays where he's going to stuff a run here or there. But the dude has 5 or 6 PBUs.
He does, yep. Match the hands.
And I tell you what, guys, here's the thing that people don't necessarily realize. JTT and Jack coming off one of his best games as a Buckeye. I feel good about our edge rushers on their tackles. I really do. But when you have a running quarterback, the only way that they can get those sacks is there's nowhere for him to run. And that's what we saw in the second half of the Penn State game versus Aller. And him being able to kind of just do his job and be able to come off and make a play on a quarterback that might happen one time. But then on those short intermediate throws on third down, he's not going to get the pressure, but he can get his hand up, and he does a really good job, especially if he's on the left side of the offensive line, because you're a right-handed quarterback. The quick throw normally going to his right. That'd be our left. So I think that he's going to be a difference maker in this game, because let's not kid ourselves, man. As good as we want to think that linebackers are, we're only as good as the dudes that play in front of us. That's a fact. So, it'd be good to get Michael Hall back, but we had some other guys there that have stepped up. I just think that he's going to have a monster game defensively. He's had a great season, and I expect nothing less than his best game in this one.
Yeah, can't argue with that. I called him, I broke him down on Buck IQ last week, Schlegs. I think that it's not that I was wrong about him, but he's most exceeded the expectations. Like the last 2 years, he himself, Tyleik Williams, would have conversations. I'd interview him. Like, I've been lazy. I've been injured. Both of these things like haven't fulfilled the potential. Tyleik Williams has taken that challenge, and it's been probably one of the most dramatic growths of a player that I can recall. Considering what he talked about, like I didn't say he was lazy. He said he was lazy. Like that's, and that's,
you know what, that's because the relationship that he has with Larry Johnson that comes from self-introspection and understanding, like, yeah, I am this. A lot of times people don't want to say that they are.
That's right.
And to be able to own that and then say, here's what I'm going to do to get better. And then now it's showing up on the field. It just validates what his coach says and what his work, that his work is working.
That's right.
And I think he's going to have a big game.
It's 2 days away for
I can't wait, man.
And the rest of Ohio State. We want to be sure from the Podcast Daily to wish you a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Enjoy it with your families. Get ready for Saturday at noon. This is what we have all been waiting for. Happy Thanksgiving to the Schlegel family. Thanks to Schlegs for joining me again throughout the regular season on these Thursday episodes. We couldn't miss this one. We had to get ready for the game, and now we are. So happy Thanksgiving from us. For Schlegs, I'm Austin Ward. We'll talk to y'all later.